Welcome to Ghostly Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Welcome to Ghostly Talk Shows. Find your own voice. Lead from within. Over to you, Carol Anna. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, and good afternoon from London, UK. And as the writing facilitator, soul-driven entrepreneurs hire me to write more productively with ease and flow and engagement, because most are not making the money that they know they could. They're having to spend all their time on the business and they're not making the difference that they want to. So I help them to complete their manuscript and in less time, more confidently, with needing less editing. So the bottom line is, to get your book published, your manuscript needs to be completed. So thank you. Namsa?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol Ann. So our topic today is how do you challenge inappropriate behavior? So Carol Ann, you chose this topic. So you must have gone through, or somebody you know must have gone through this. So I'm not going to take away your glory. Please, can you explain why you chose this topic?
Again, I was listening to a program and they were talking about inappropriate behavior, and some of the things that they were talking about, I was thinking, I hadn't thought about that. And they were sort of going back to, when they were younger, and you sort of get the women that were talking, and they were talking about like the wolf whistles that they used to get from, like builders. And I remembered that as well. And it makes you feel so uncomfortable. So I started thinking, well, what is inappropriate behavior? How can you challenge it? And so I just thought it would be something that would be worth exploring here. And it made me start thinking as well, where has my behavior been inappropriate? Or maybe in some way, because bullying is a form of inappropriate behavior. It's got a different drive there, but it is about actually being able to establish, well, what is inappropriate behavior for you? Establish your boundaries. So how can you do that without causing major upset, And there are ways, and I sort of had to think about it. And so I'd just like to just share a few ideas and a few examples of how, by working on yourself, inappropriate behavior can change. So that's where I'm coming from. So what about you when you saw the title? You're unmuted.
When I saw the title, actually, I was like, wow, yes. Basically, like what you say, like you ask yourself how you might have behaved inappropriate, or sometimes I see people's posts on social media. I see somebody posting about their business, they're working hard, they're posting. Then somebody else comes in and they say something basically to upset that person, or sometimes they put a comment that is inappropriate. to what has been put there. So I'm thinking, what is it to this person? But at the same time, we have to understand that when somebody behaves inappropriate towards you, it means they have their own issues. They still have their own attachment problems that they need to deal with, which can be very, very difficult for somebody who is in the receiving end. Basically, if you are receiving that comment, or somebody, or it could be at work, like it could be business, somebody basically at work, they're behaving inappropriate. So it's basically, this topic, it covers all walks of lives, marriages. Sometimes you find the husband goes to work or the wife goes to work, you come home, they're tired, and that the person, they, because they didn't have a good day, so they're going to take it on the other person. That is inappropriate. So you still have to learn how to deal with it. Or sometimes it could be children going through something, and then they behave something. Then you just have to find a way to find out, because sometimes when somebody's behaving the way they are behaving, they're sending you a message that something is not right. So you have to find out. But the problem with the finding out is you can't fix them. That is the problem.
Okay, it's a problem. I think, yes, it's having that awareness
Yeah,
that you can't fix them.
yeah. You
And
have
most
to be
people
aware.
want to think, oh, I've got to fix them.
No, you can't.
And you can't. And that's the first step to actually moving forward. It's that, well, it's them. They've got to change. It's their, they're the problem. Well, actually, there are ways of you taking it on board yourself. And if you work with yourself, then that behavior can change. So there is actually saying, well, look, sitting down and having a conversation about it, actually identify, well, what is the inappropriate behavior? So it's having that confidence to identify, well, what's the boundary that's been stepped over here, and not let that boundary be stepped over. And it's having that confidence within yourself to stand up and say, this doesn't work for me. But it isn't about blaming them and saying, you're doing this to me. It's about identifying the behavior and saying how that's making you feel. When you do this, this is how I feel. And, it takes away that, well, you're doing it to me, that finger pointing, and that you feel that there's a difference in energy which creates argument and will promote even more anger. It's just about saying, this doesn't work for me. And saying, well, how can we move forward? And actually getting, what is it that prompts that other person to behave in that way? And then attempting to get into their world, or it's about having a conversation. And I know that it wasn't something that I found easy growing up, or even when I was married. We never really resolved issues properly, because it was almost like there was a child came out, and then one or other of us would just storm out and slam the door. It doesn't work. It just makes things worse, because it's ignored, it festers, or it gets pushed down, but it doesn't go away. And I always used to feel, I need to talk about this, but I couldn't. And so I talk with friends. And so that's chatting it over, talking about it, but it doesn't solve the problem. It just seems to wind you up, and for a while you feel a little bit better, but it doesn't solve the problem. And so I did come to a place of realizing, well, this isn't solving anything, but I didn't know how to be with myself and how to address it and actually have the conversation, because it would spark, anger in the other person, and then they'd storm off out, and it was like, well, what's going on? How can we move forward? So in some ways I wish I I known then what I know now. So I always try to think out those words. But yeah, I wish I knew then what I know now. But what I've also come to realize is if you're meant to know then, you will know then. And the fact that I know now doesn't make then wrong. It's just part of my learning, because I can look back and realize how things were, but how things are now, and how much more I can stand up and say, well, no, this doesn't work for me. Or when I refer into that part that backs off from confrontation. But I now have the tools to work with that so that I can get stronger and just face and challenge and establish those boundaries. So how about you, Nom? So how's things been sort of over the years? And
I think over the years, for me, it was, I find it difficult at the beginning to actually communicate my needs, or sometimes if I'm working with the people who are difficult, or if I'm with people who are difficult, I always find it hard to actually communicate and express how and try to resolve problems. And but then as time went by, I think it was 2008 or 2009 where I basically changed my mind that I needed, when I got into personal development, where if somebody, I let people know about the boundaries that cannot be crossed. And at the same time, the situation, it can get complicated if you have people who are control freaks who want to control your life. That can cause problems because they want to control everything. Or sometimes, basically, if you are dealing with somebody who's got issues, who have got problems in their lives, basically, that's when I realized that you can't fix people. You can let them know your boundaries, but you cannot fix their problems. Do you walk away from somebody, or do you offer help? No, you can't walk away from somebody. You can only walk away if the behavior continues, because sometimes people might behave in a certain way as they're crying out, looking for help. So basically, you have to have the right questions, or trying to find out why this person is behaving the way they are behaving, without coming in a place of judgmental, because somebody might be going through something. Sometimes people, when they're going through something, they don't know how to come and tell you that I'm actually in a bad place at the moment. So this is where the problem, even if they don't tell you what they are going through, what is going on, but just to let you know that at this moment I'm going through some stuff. So I just need you to support me, or if they feel that they want to tell you. But we don't have that. We feel that we shouldn't be open up with other people. People should know your problems. But when you work with somebody, for me personally, if I work with someone in my company, I don't want emotionally for you to make me suffer because of what you are going through. If you let me know, Nomsa, this is what I'm going through, maybe I might be able to solve that problems. Maybe emotionally I might be able to support you, because you do need support. So if you are working with me and you are going through some stuff, so why are you there if you can't confide in me? So that's where I always find the problem is that I always tell my friend, why are you my friend if you can't confide in me? If you feel that you cannot confide in me, why are you working with me if you feel that you cannot tell me your problems? Because the reason why we are in the cycle together is to help each other, to actually make sure I cannot carry your emotions, I cannot carry your problems, but I can make sure that you are loved, you are being looked after, so that, because the problems are meant to share. But sometimes the people, yes, there are some people who don't like to talk about their problems. It's fine. And that's why I'm suggesting that if you just come to somebody and say, this is what I'm going through, but I don't want to talk about it, but I'm going through some stuff, and let that person know, instead of putting them into a circle that is not right, and then your emotions and their emotions, you both end up in a different situation where they're stressed, you're stressed. So over the years, I'll never express my feelings, but after that, I will not tolerate anybody's behavior. I know it sounds harsh. I basically read the Bible, how Jesus was. Jesus was an open book. So for me, basically, if I need to hang around in your cycle, I don't want to be burdened by somebody else's emotions that I don't know. So that's why if somebody is going through something, I try to communicate with them, try to find out what they are going through. Is there anything I can help to actually make the situation better? Maybe just by being there, no interfering, just letting them know I'm there for you. But if you are not communicating your feelings, it's like in the marriage. If you don't communicate your feelings, what happens? The marriage breaks. So it'll work. If you don't communicate your needs, the relationship will break. You lose your job. So basically, when I'm going through something, basically, I communicate myself. My family, they know that if I'm going through something, I just say out loud that I'm going through this sometimes, or sometimes I cry about it. But with the social media, basically, I don't entertain it. I used to get annoyed when I read somebody else's post, but now when I read it, I'm like, the comment, I'm like, oh, it's going through something, messed up life, another messed up somebody. Because basically, we communicate when somebody is saying something, we communicate our needs. So you just have to actually, there are some problems that you're gonna have to ignore them. You have to choose your battles, basically. Pick and choose.
Yeah.
And how you respond as well, Carol Ann, it's very, very important. How you respond to the situation is very, very important, because when you respond to a situation, coming in a place of caring, somebody will want to talk to you. But if you respond in a situation where you are judgmental, that person will not want to talk to you, but maybe they are going through something, or maybe it's the soul that you can save, but then you don't. So it's just, it gets complicated.
It gets complicated.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it can be looked at that way. And as you say, it's about not reacting.
Yeah.
It's being able to diffuse the situation, because actually, if somebody is in that state where they are giving inappropriate, their behavior is inappropriate, whether it's anger, whether it's they're it's just, I think, anger, and then they're not really with it. You can't talk to them because they're not in their rational brain. They're not in that rational part, so they can't really hear you. They've got no access to language. So it's about diffusing it so that emotion is then reduced so that they can hear you. And I remember it happened a couple of times with some students at school that I had to take out of two different students, two different teachers, that I had to take the pupil out because their behavior was totally inappropriate. Couldn't talk to them, and it was like it was all the teacher's fault, and they were just not able to talk or communicate. They were just so angry and causing a lot of problems. And what I did was just I used some NLP with one of them. I used some NLP just questioning, and I say, well, what happened? Or I don't know. Well, if you did know, what would you be knowing? And just asking questions like that, which just tease out their response. He went, "Oh, miss, you're doing my head in," like that all of a sudden. But then in that sort of reaction, he just calmed down and he was present. And we were able to then have a conversation in a way that, because I wasn't blaming him or telling him he was wrong or he was naughty, but just questioning, well, what happened? And, but he just wasn't able to tell me in the previous moment. But once we'd broken through that and he became present, he was then able to explain what had happened. He then got present to his part in how it all just blew out of control, and was able to then really calm down, take ownership of his part in it, and go back in, apologize, and move forward in a more appropriate way. So it is about diffusing it. Another time, I sat the student in something called hookups. It's a brain gym activity from educational kinesiology, which is about drawing out learning through movement. But this time I just sat him in something called hookups, which is where you just cross your ankles, you put your backs of your hands together, thumbs to the floor, then cross the hands over, interlink the fingers, and just roll the hands up and under. And just got him to, I like to close his eyes and just focus on the breathing and just feel whatever you're feeling. And then after a while, I could just feel him just calming down. And then eventually he was able to he was just present. And again, we were able to have that conversation. Well, what happened? What took place? And he was then able to identify his part in it without making anything wrong, just identify it. And then what would have been more appropriate. And so able to move forward and then put him back in the classroom. So again, yeah, it is diffusing it, but it is making them aware this behavior is inappropriate. But what caused it, what went then out of control? But it is about having the tools and the techniques to just be able to diffuse the emotion. And as you were saying, sometimes it's really difficult to know what your needs are. And I remember being head of department and knowing that things weren't working for me, but I couldn't communicate it in a way that got me the support that I felt I needed. They felt that they were supporting me. They felt I was doing great, but me, I wasn't. And things was just really struggling. So it is about being able to identify your needs and communicate them in such a way that gets you the support that you're seeking. Because what you're saying about behavior, and it's about children when they say, oh, they're being naughty. Well, I've always said there are no naughty children. They're just children who are testing the boundaries. They're exploring their world and trying to find out what it is they can do, can't do, or just being and finding out, for themselves. So is it Kimberly Giles says, all bad behavior is really a request for love, attention, or validation. And sometimes the behavior that you don't want, that gets attention. And I remember when I set up and ran a play group when my children were younger. It was a local play group. And there was one mum, she was completely at her wit's end. She just didn't know what to do with this child. And she was actually getting a wooden spoon to him because, and to attempt to stop him. And it was like, no, this is working. So what we said was, let's reward the behavior that you want. Because by giving him that behavior, you're hitting them, you're smacking them, or whatever it is, they're getting the attention that they want. And it is attention, but it might not be the attention they really want because it could be painful, but they're getting your attention. So it's about giving attention to them when they're not giving the behavior that you don't want, but giving them the attention when they give you the behavior that you do want. And sometimes they can be great and they're just playing quietly and you ignore them rather than give them your attention. because it's like, oh, they're okay, they can get on. Well, actually, that's the time to give them the attention. So it is recognizing, and actually his behavior did change. We managed to shift that around. So she was focusing more on giving him attention when his behavior was appropriate, sorry. And was able to sort of let go of the frustration, the anger, and the way she had been attempting to resolve it, you know, his behavior. So, and I like something that Victoria Holt says in her book, Manfreya in the Morning. The more I disliked myself, the more wretched I grew. The difference now was that this mood did not manifest itself in sullen silence. I merely made use of my barbed tongue to wound them and spoil their pleasure. And that really highlights what you were saying. It's something in the other person, and somehow they can't help themselves with their behavior. So again, it is diffusing it and then having a conversation and asking an open question, like, what has led you to feeling this way? What are your real concerns about this situation? You know, some open questions. So what are you hearing here?
Yeah, okay, basically open questions that are really good to carry on. And when you say there are no naughty children, I agree with you, because it's like you see children at school and the teachers basically they overreact. Sometimes they say this child is naughty, this child is naughty. And for me, basically, when I'm being told that that child is naughty, I always want to know their parents. What kind of environment do they come from? And then if you understand the environment of that child, where they come from, or you talk to them, they might be able to talk to you about their feelings. It's like my children. My daughter, she's 6. If she's not happy, she will tell you that I'm not happy. Or if she's singing and you want to get in, she will tell you, it's my turn, let me just sing and enjoy my song on my own. Because she's being taught to actually express her feelings, how she's feeling. And sometimes it's very, very important. And I like it when you say sometimes you have to take ownership. For me, basically, if I behave inappropriate to somebody, I take ownership. I'm not afraid to take ownership, and I'm not afraid to say sorry, because when you actually acknowledge what your behavior and you taking responsibilities for your behavior, you identify. If you're able to identify where you've gone wrong, or sometimes it could be somebody basically completely judging you coming from a different place, and you have to be able to understand. You have to be someone that understands the people's behavior, basically, and surrender your basically of being in control, because we all want to control everything. We all feel that we should be in control, we should be this, we should be this. But I've learned it the hard way that if you let people do the things and be able to be who they want to be, there won't be any conflict. And there might be sometimes there are some people that might take advantage of you, the situation. You just have to be able to identify and be able to communicate that this is what I can tolerate, this is what I can't tolerate. And because everything is about basically having an understanding of each other, whether it's children, whether it's in a relationship, and understanding that some people are not perfect, and I'm not perfect either. So it does help sometimes, and being able to communicate your needs, which is something that I've learned the hard way, for people to know that if I'm not okay, I'm not okay, or how I want to be treated. And also there are sometimes, like, if I'm if I'm going through something, sometimes I don't want to talk about it. And I have to be aware that I have to be aware that whatever I don't want to talk about it, I cannot take it to somebody else. I have to deal with it. I have to speak to God and say, listen, God, this is what I'm going through. I'm going through this. For me, basically, I talk to God like a normal person. So I'm like, this is what I'm going through. But I feel that I'm not ready to talk to somebody about this. So help me to actually carry this burden, because I don't think I can carry it on my own. But then it becomes difficult when you actually meet someone who has had their own problems. Some people they've got attachment, childhood attachment. Some people they are difficult to handle. So how do you deal with that? Do you hang around? For me, basically, I feel that if somebody's messed up, I can't let them mess my life. I just have to let them be and to be aware of that. I'm not judging them, but I can't carry their burden, because if you are not happy with something, you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware that you cannot carry and take it on somebody else. So that is basically what I do, that I will listen to somebody. And also when somebody is talking to you about what they are going through, or what made them behave the way they are behaving, it is good to actually listen to that person. Really, really listen to what is being said and evaluate that conversation and ask yourself basically, how can you actually avoid it happening again if it's something that it was an accident, or if it's something that you feel that you have contributed into the situation. It's good to really, really evaluate and calming the situation at the same time. Because sometimes there are some people who are into personal development. They've dealt with their issues, and other people have not. So they will expect those people to behave the same way, but it's never going to happen. So you have to be aware of where you are with your personal development, with your mindset, and not judge people, and just come in a place of love. I've met people that say, like, they say, like, even at work, they're into personal development, they will start judging people like this one. Oh, she comes in, and I'm like, okay, you worked out your life. That doesn't mean this person, let them figure it out. Teach them how they can, because, because if you are into personal development, just by talking to people, there are some people at work I talk to, and a few months later, you hear them coming back and say, oh, no, so I heard you talking about this. Oh, where can I find it? It's like a book, or it's like an audio. You don't have to come in a place of judgmental, but you can teach others by using psychology, teach them to get into personal development so they can grow into their mindset. Um, so I think that it does help. And also, when you listen to somebody, take them very serious. When somebody's telling you about their problems, take them very serious, and make sure that if there's a part that you have to play in helping them a little bit, just be there for them, and focus on the future of the outcome you want, and not the negative one. It's very, very important to actually focus when you're solving problems, focus on the future that you want. Or if the other person, the mindset is not there, don't force them. Just walk away. And people pretend not to hear. That's what I've realized, that actually people pretend not to hear, but they actually hear you. Because there are some people that they'll come to me, they are, I have this problem, and I will say, oh, there's there's something, or Tony Robbins. I'll direct them to Tony Robbins on YouTube, or somebody else, a speaker. I'll just say a speaker, I'll just say this, and then I leave them alone, and they come back and tell me the same thing. I have to say it again and say it again, and, and then a few months later, or weeks later, they'll come back and say, oh, I have that audio. And they're like, oh, I've got something else that I came across. Now they're giving me another audio to listen to. So they pretend they're not listening, but they're actually listening.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, because that feels. Yeah, how did that feel when you realised they were actually listening?
It feels good. Even my children, they do that to me. You talk to them, they're like, oh, ignore you. They're like, oh, here we go again. Honestly, they do that. And then later on, you will hear them saying, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. So you're like, oh, so you're listening.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
it just
sometimes
feels
it
good.
takes time to filter in, doesn't it? And,
Yeah.
And what you're saying about it is about taking ownership of your part in anything. It's not saying that you're to blame, because I know sometimes when you start looking at it this way, people say, oh, you're saying I'm to blame. And it's no. It's just going back to what you were saying in the beginning. You can't change the other person. What you can change, though, is your own behavior and how you're responding or reacting, and what in you could possibly be attracting that behavior, because there's maybe a lesson here for you to learn. And when you stand in that, about being creator of your own reality, it means that you've then got power over that, rather than it having power over you. You're not a victim anymore. You are the creator. And for me, that's when I started learning that and realizing that, it enabled me to move out of situations where I felt that I was the victim, and it was like, oh, poor me, and this is happening to me. And it's like, no, when I started to think, well, what in me is attracting that? For what reason are these people behaving in this way? What is there for me to learn here? Just focusing on those different questions. All of a sudden, it takes on a different energy. And once you do then clear what it is in you, acknowledge it, learn the lesson, strangely enough, their behavior does change. That's the bizarre part about it, because something in you has changed. And it's being able to do that. And I remember something that showed me this many years ago now, when I first started training. And I'd stepped out of, or I'd been ill, and then I took a package to leave, because I still wasn't well, and I'd been off for 2 terms, right from the September right round to the Easter, and I still wasn't really that well to step back into a full-time role and as head of department. And so the head gave me a package to actually leave, and I took it. It just felt the right thing to do at the time. And I then where was I going with this? Oh, that's right, yeah. And so, because I was started doing my training in brain gym, educational kinesiology, and so just a short while after that, I then got a job in a college, a sixth form college, or post-16 college. That's right. I sort of lost my thread for a minute and timescale. But yeah, that was April that I took that package and left. And then in the August of that same year, I applied for and got a part-time post in a post-16 college. And I ended up going and visiting my sister, and I was going to do some work with one of her horses. And the activity that happened, what showed up, was that it really showed me how much we can impact somebody else and their behaviour. Because this horse wasn't listening to me. I was attempting to lead it to the schooling arena. And my sister said, that horse isn't with you. I went, I know. I just managed to get it to the schooling arena. We let it go, and it literally bolted to the far corner. And so this was the day before I was due to start my new job. And I knew I was sort of a little bit anxious, it's a new job. I haven't been teaching for a year, and I actually wanted to bring in the new tools that I'd started training in as well. And so we stood in the arena, and my sister was going to show me how to join up with the horse, the activity that she does. Anyway, the horse came up towards us looking at my sister, and then literally it saw me. It went like this and literally turned around and bolted for the far corner again. And it's like, my sister's looking at me and she said, "You're doing that to my horse." And I went, I know. I could really feel that energy. Anyway, she went to show me how to do join up. So she went up to her horse, and she turned around to me. She said, "I can't send him away. He's my horse." And she literally turned around, walked back towards me, and this horse had his nose to her back, trotting quite calmly behind her. And literally she got up to me, he saw me, and did once again, he was like, turn off, he shot. And it's like, okay, there's no way I'm getting anywhere near that horse, because she was saying, well, going up to him. I said, he's not going to let me get anywhere near him. So we went outside the arena to the side of the arena, and I started doing some brain gym activities and something else that I trained in as well, which was vision gym, which is again part of educational kinesiology. So just different activities that just diffuse the energy in you, help you to find different perspectives, release the stress. And as I was doing these activities, this horse just literally trotted back over to us. And my sister said, "Oh, I wish we had a camera here, or video." She said, because he's showing all the signs of acquiescing that we do when we do join up. And this horse came, put his head over the fence, and we actually had a canopy as well. So it was between the canopy and the fence, and she was like, well, they wouldn't normally do that. And I had my back to him, and she was going, "He wants your attention." And I went, "Yes, I can feel that." So I eventually got to a point where I felt, okay, I've done enough. So she said to me, "Right, go back into the arena, touch him all over, even including his vulnerable parts, and then stroke his nose, and just turn around and say, 'Come on, Fresco, turn around and walk, and just trust that he'll follow you.'" I went back into the arena. I walked up to that horse. He just stayed where he was. He let me stroke him all over. I then stroked his nose and went, "Come on, Fresco." I turned, I walked, and that horse followed me. I was like, wow. So that really brought it home to me how my own anxiety and what was going on for me impacted that horse, and how that would have impacted my students had I gone in with that the next day. And as it was, I was able to be in that calmer space. It worked. I was with them. I was happy. They were happy. They did what I asked them to do, So I've always remembered that, because that was a huge, huge lesson. So do recognize that it's not about blame, or I think it's just taking ownership of, well, what's going on here? what can I do that would actually diffuse the situation and change things around and make for a much more appropriate behaviour happening here, a much more comfortable interchange and exchange and connection, you know. So yeah, very, very powerful experience that was for me.
Yeah, that's really powerful, because the host was able to trust, because you have to win. Even with a human being, when you meet somebody, they have to be able to trust you, to be able to open up. So you didn't give up. You gave the host a chance to trust you, and the host saw that this person is not gonna give up. So let me give her a chance to get to know her, because all she knew was your sister. So and then it got to know you, and I agree with you when you say, don't come in a place where you're blaming, because when you're blaming, you can't fix anything by blame. So you have to come in a place of caring and wanting the positive outcome, which is not an easy thing to do. Basically, is very, very, very hard for somebody to be in that mindset where. And that's why you find the people that are into personal development, when they sleep, they sleep, they sleep, they sleep. Things go wrong, they sleep. So that means they're not there yet. So for me, basically, sometimes I go to business event and I see people, or even on social media, you see people the way they behave, but they are into personal development. So you have to have an understanding of people and their behaviors, and don't come in a place like what you were saying, that if you would have gone home, you would have gone home with the stress if that thing with the horse hadn't been resolved. So it was resolved, and you both, the horse, you were all free and both okay, and the horse just needed to trust you. Basically, it happens with people as well. And sometimes it happens with people whenever they have problems and they don't want to deal with it. Some people simply don't want to deal with their problems. They like to give the stress to other people, and they don't like to deal with their problems. And you have to be aware of those kind of people as well, and have an understanding of challenges that comes your way in life, and try to basically, like you talk about being the creator of your own reality, and acknowledging things around you, and being the creator of your own reality. It can be tough, and because sometimes we switch off. You have to stay focused, basically, and acknowledging people's behaviors, and that people are different. And for me, that's what I do. Basically, I know that I am the creator of my destiny. And sometimes I actually, I work with people, and sometimes if I feel that this person cannot give me what I want, then I tell them straight away, I've got no time to make excuses, because I know, if I know that this person, they cannot deliver what I need, I just have to be honest and basically move on. And because when you are the creator of your own reality, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with people around you as well, so that they can help you to move forward with whatever you want to do. And of course, you can't go around and telling everyone your problems, but there will be that one special person that will always be there. And also, when you are going through that with a person with a bad behavior, you have to come to a place where you evaluate the situation, and you just figure out what is going to help both of you moving forward, like you and the host. Basically, you and your sister decided that she's going to help you to actually bond with the host, and it worked out. But if she was somebody with a snappy behavior, she would have completely judged you, and left you confused, basically. Not being your fault or horse's fault, just leaving you confused just because actually the horse doesn't know Carol Ann. The horse want to win your trust, and you want to understand the horse, so you both confused. And but your sister was willing to be there and making sure that you both are creating the reality that you want. And in the end, there was a powerful bond between you and the host. And that is a breakthrough. It's really, really a beautiful breakthrough if you can actually change somebody else's life, or if you can actually change your own life by basically dealing with the challenging behaviors, because there's a lot of challenging behaviors like now with the coronavirus. I'm in a business groups where everyone has the opinion about the pandemic, what they think about the government, what they think about it. So you have to be somebody who stays focused, because the otherwise I hear people sometimes with the groups where I am, they're like, this is not the group, this is the group that we talk about business. So I'm like, hey, if you want these people to be people, you're gonna have to let them voice their opinion. You don't have to read messages, just delete them. So I'm like, I ignore some messages if I know that they are not mine, they are not for me, because you can't expect somebody to be there and talk about businesses. So you have to let them express their opinions as well. It's fine to express. So I always tell people and say, just let them express their opinion. If they have whatever opinion they have, let them be, because my beliefs and your beliefs, I don't have to believe in what you believe in, but I can listen to what you're saying, but I don't have to believe it. And you can listen to what I'm saying. We don't have to believe it. So our behavior, basically, we have to understand we get to know each other by understanding our beliefs. So that's why I always say to people, like, just leave them alone. But now they don't complain. They're like, some people be like, I think I need to leave. I'm like, no, you don't need to leave. Just ignore messages. If somebody, as long as they're not insulting anyone, they are not basically putting messages, rude messages. I'm like, these people, they're just being who they are. So if you have 200 people, the beliefs are different. They are not going to be the same. Whatever you believe, the people are not, they're going to have their own beliefs. I'm like, just let people be.
Yeah. But if people are sending you, I mean, that's, there's bullying, isn't there? That's a form of bullying, which is not acceptable. People sending you emails or posts that are not comfortable. And it's about recognizing in yourself, how is this making you feel?
Yeah.
And clearing that, working with that, rather than allowing yourself to be made uncomfortable. And I know it's not easy, because not everybody has the tools to be able to do that. But it is making that decision to say, I'm not going to allow myself to be made to feel like this. And reach out and ask for support to somebody that can give you this sort of support that can help change things for you, rather than somebody that's not going to really listen, or that is just it's not going to get any better. So it is about being able to identify, well, look, this behavior is not comfortable for me. It's not acceptable. And to some people, they can brush things off. They're in a much different space. And to them, it might be, just ignore it. For other people, it triggers something in them. And while that trigger is there, they can't ignore it. And it'll continue to get triggered, because the more it gets triggered, the more you're giving out that energy that is getting that other person to do the behavior that triggers the trigger. Once you identify the trigger, you diffuse the trigger, their behavior can't do that to you anymore. And they'll stop because they're not getting the response that they were looking for or were wanting. And it is also about holding a bully accountable for their actions, helping them to understand, look, it may, in your world, it might be okay because maybe you've experienced this and it's okay for you, or, you know, but for me, it's not. And so again, it is about drawing those boundaries. And I love what Gary Hopkins says. When a bully is held accountable for his actions, his future actions will change. Bad behavior only continues for those who allow it. So are you allowing it to continue because you're not addressing it? And if you're asking for support and you're not getting it, then change who you're talking to about it, because that behavior itself is just continuing the whole cycle of bullying and inappropriate behavior. So again, it is about standing up for yourself or finding a way of doing that. And it can happen. You just need the right support to be able to do that. And there are people out there that can support you. There are people here, we can support you. Or we know people that can support you. So do reach out if you're experiencing inappropriate behavior in any way and it's not getting resolved. If you're experiencing bullying and it's not getting resolved, because then it escalates into mental health issues. And then that just compounds things and makes it even more difficult to climb out of that situation. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It just makes it more difficult and a longer process. It's about nipping things in the bud, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, when it happens, it's going, oh, no, deal with it. Yeah. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol. And I think we come to the end. Do you have any words of encouragement, or that was your word of encouragement?
That was, and I think just something else. It's focus on the future outcome that you want, because what you focus on is what you get. So if you're continuing to focus on the inappropriate behavior or the bullying, that's what will continue. So shift your focus. Focus on the future outcome that you want. Ask yourself a question like, what would help move me forward in this, or help us move forward? What would make the situation better? So ask those sort of questions. Create that future image and stand in, this is what I want. And again, as you were saying, Nomsa, reach out for help, but also just pray, because that guidance is there, that support is there, and answers will come your way. So it's not impossible. It is possible. So stand in that possibility that you can change the situation, and it will change.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol. And for me, basically, I'll say pray, meditate, and like Carol Ann said, focus on the future. There is no point in looking back to who did this, who did what. Just focus on the future and the outcome that you want. It will come your way only if you want to receive it, because everything is about energy. If you listen to Bob Proctor, everything you do in life is about the energy that you basically allow to come to you and you give out. So make sure you give out the right energy, and good energy will come your way, and you are the creator of your own destiny, like Carol Ann said. And for me, basically, I always say, if you didn't make me, you cannot define me. You define yourself with your God. God knows the true authenticity of you. I can say I know things about you, but I don't. So just focus on the outcome of what you desire in life, and keep loving, keep caring. And if people come your way with inappropriate behavior, just keep loving. Don't tolerate that behavior. Have boundaries in place and your principles in place and your boundaries, and you'll be happy. We here at Ghost Talk Shows Monday to Friday. Like Carol Ann said, get in touch if you need any help. And 1 p.m. UK time. God bless you and live with grace.